Learning kanji is one of the most daunting tasks for Japanese learners, but in this video we'll explore why learning kanji is so important outside of just being able to read Japanese, and also I will provide some important tips for learning new kanji. So why exactly do I recommend you learn kanji, even if you don't care about reading and understanding Japanese text? Well, since kanji are so integrated into the culture in Japan, so many aspects of the language include and are shaped by kanji. For example, many names have around 4 kanji, usually 2 sets of 2 kanji for the first and last name. Likewise, most words also contain kanji, and each kanji has a particular set of kunyomi and onyomi readings, which are based on either the Japanese reading or the traditional Chinese pronunciation of that kanji. But more practically, the kunyomi is usually used when the kanji is by itself in a word, while the onyomi is usually used when the kanji is paired with another kanji in the same word. For example, if we look at taberu, this word only has the one kanji used to describe both food and eating. Now, by itself, it has this kunyomi reading of ta, or taberu. But there are also other kunyomi readings like ku and hamu. So those depend on what the word is and the hiragana that follow after it. You can see then that kanji can have multiple readings, with some being much more common than others. Now, if we take our previous example and add another kanji for the kanji used for eating and food, now we have the onyomi readings shoku and zuri for that kanji. One side note, there are also nanori readings, which are special readings used for personal names, but it's not something that you should stress too much about worrying over. If you study kanji and memorize the different readings, it is very similar to studying stems of words. For example, the prefix post means both after and behind, as in postpone and postpone. And we can infer the meanings of these words much more easily if we know the prefix. Over time, we become quite skilled at recognizing the different prefixes, stems, and so forth, and so we memorize these words a lot faster, and we're able to recall them a lot more quickly. Of course, this does require plenty of practice like all other things in a language, but I think that being able to make these connections, people just don't realize how important that is and how useful it can be when you're learning a language. You might make these connections naturally, even without studying kanji, but I think the process will be a lot more smoother and more efficient when you study kanji. In the same manner, kanji can also act like word stems. The kanji ato is very similar to post in that it has the meanings of later, after, behind, back, and so forth. It has the common onyomi reading go, such as in saigo, hongo, and gogo. If you already know this kanji then and its readings, you'll have a much easier time of making those connections of tons of words, and you'll be able to not only read them, but also be better equipped to listen to words and pick up on some of those meanings. So hopefully I've established an extra incentive for why learning kanji is so important, along with many other reasons that should be obvious to you. So how exactly should you go about learning and studying kanji? Like most other people, I would recommend that you buy some kind of book or guide that goes over the most common kanji, their radicals, and their different meanings. Given that the N1 Japanese proficiency requires you to know at least 2,000 kanji, I think it is a great resource to be able to understand how the kanji are made in the first place. And Remembering the Kanji by James Heisig is a fantastic book that covers just about all of this. The most common kanji, their radicals, and all of the radicals are included early on, so you can start implementing them very early into your studying. And then it goes over the meanings, and the main idea of this book is that it tries to capture an element of storytelling and visualization. When you're able to visualize something in your mind, when you're able to recall an interesting story about something, it makes that thing a lot easier to recall and retell. So with the idea of kanji, Each kanji has its own story. Each radical has something to tell about the kanji. And that's why I think remembering the kanji by Heisig is a very good start, and one that I definitely recommend you pick up early on. To provide a basic example, if we look at the kanji for tree, we can see that this kanji looks very much like a tree. And so that's a pretty easy example to memorize. We can just memorize it based on the image. Now, if we look at the kanji for forest, we can see that now there's 3 of these kanji all placed together. And so there's a lot of trees in the forest, right? And when we take this kanji now and add it with a different radical, for example, if we look at the word rest, or the kanji for the word rest, we can see that it takes radical for person and combines it with the radical or kanji tree, right? And so we can see that it is a person resting against a tree. You can imagine then how this process would be very helpful for studying thousands of different kanji that are made up of different radicals and other kanji. After grasping these basics and crafting these stories to help you memorize the kanji, the next step would be to actually put it into practice by reading kanji in context, providing you with examples on how this kanji is used with and without other kanji affixed to them. When you come across a kanji that you don't recognize, I would recommend using the Japanese app, which I've definitely mentioned in my other videos before. This app pretty much has all the functions you would want. You can see the readings, there are example sentences with how they are used, common compounds so that you can learn the words that they're used in and see those readings in action, and even other kanji that contain them. But that's not all, since there are also similar looking kanji listed, as well as info on their frequency and the JLPT level. Also, this app allows you to create lists where you can test yourself with flashcards. If you want to practice writing, this app demonstrates the stroke order to you as well. I particularly liked the references section where you can quickly look up kanji by frequency or grade level. And you can also view a list of radicals characterized by the number of strokes. Basically, download this app if you are learning Japanese. Using the combination of these resources, you are now ready to start diving into reading, preferably starting with some very simple stuff as you get used to still recognizing the readings of different kanji. Now, you could use the option of having furigana displayed above the kanji in some of these resources, but just keep in mind that you shouldn't rely too much on it, as it will cripple your learning experience in the future. So whenever you can and whenever you start getting more comfortable with kanji, I would wean yourself off of that very quickly. With this in mind, something like reading manga could be very beneficial starting out, especially since a lot of manga is adapted for students, so that the kanji that is used is not as difficult, or if it is difficult, it might have some furigana displayed above the kanji. Visual novels and video games can also be good resources for reading, and it definitely helps when there is a voiced dialogue, as you can listen to someone say the pronunciation while also reading the dialogue in text form. This is best when you don't want to spend a lot of time looking up a lot of kanji that you just don't know, as you can simply listen to it and then just look up the words that you don't know. And 1010 Reader is also a huge help for quickly looking up words in kanji, and definitely an extension that I highly recommend you install into your browser. The best progression for learning kanji would be to go through the most frequently used ones and memorizing them as best you can. From there, you want to actually train your brain to recognize the readings of these kanji in smaller, short text. After that, you'll finally want to just expand the different sources that you're inputting your kanji from, so that you can train your brain under different scenarios. If you have the ability to do so, I would recommend watching something like Japanese drama or anime with Japanese subtitles displayed at the bottom. YouTube can also work really well with this and give you plenty of different resources and content that you might enjoy. All you need to do is check the Japanese subtitles are available in the option. If you take the time to actually learn kanji, I think that you'll find a greater appreciation for learning Japanese and understanding the language overall, maybe even more so than you would have thought. In fact, many things like jokes, puns, and other forms of wordplay are really closely tied with kanji, at least from my personal experience. And after studying kanji, I found that I've noticed a lot more of these small little details in the language. Not to mention my listening skills have also improved since then. Again, it might seem a little bit strange to think about how kanji is so integral, but I do think that it is a very important step that a lot of people just don't really take advantage of, or they'll dismiss entirely because, let's be honest, kanji is still very difficult. However, I do think that it is worth it, and I hope that in this video you learned something about kanji and maybe some different resources that you can use for your own experience learning kanji. If you found this video useful, please consider liking, subscribing, and commenting down below. Also, maybe share with a friend that might also find it useful. That'll help it reach a larger audience. In any case, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Goodbye.